Hey everybody, it's Christine with Zeidman Development, and today I'd like to walk you through some of the things you can do when you're importing actions with Importacular that you can't do when you're importing actions in the Razor's Edge native import tool. So the first thing that I do want to point you to is not exclusive to importing actions, but it can make a huge difference for you when you're importing actions. And that's working with our criteria sets. So criteria sets in Importacular allow you to determine how records are going to match to records that are already in the Razor's Edge. So when we're talking about records, we're primarily talking about our constituents. If you're working with paid destinations for relationships or tributes, you can do those as well. But today what we're talking about primarily is going to be working with those constituents. This means you don't have to have a constituent ID or a constituent import ID in your file to import. You can match to existing constituents in the Razor's Edge using things like name, email address, mailing address, phone number, etc. And these are all completely customizable. So no matter how your action file is formatted, you should be able to find a way to match to those records in the Razor's Edge. The next thing that I do want to point out while we're talking about matching to records in the Razor's Edge is we have an option on our action to work with action area settings. So I've already done some mapping here in my template, and this is my action mapping. If I come to the end of that row and open those area settings, I have options here to determine what I count as a matched action in the Razor's Edge and what happens to that matched action in Razor's Edge. Now, if you're importing using Razor's Edge Import, you have to have the action import ID in order to update the action. But that does make it a bit more difficult if you don't already have that in your file. So Importacular allows you to match on things other than that import ID. Here we can work with the action category. That's the only thing you have to do, as well as you can do the action category combined with the type, the date, the status, or an attribute description. And you get to decide what combination of those things makes this a match. The second thing is, once you decide what makes a match, what do you want to happen? So that first option is always add a new action. In that case, you're assuming that all of these actions are new, and you don't really need it to check for a match. The box that it's defaulting to, radio button I should say, that's going to update existing matches, and it's going to add new actions where there is no match. So that means that all of the data that I have in my template that's different than what's in Razor's Edge will be updated, but new records will be added as well. So that's where you definitely want to make sure you have your match set up correctly. Right now, just matching on category, I could accidentally override something I don't want to. But if you know you've got your match settings correct and you know you possibly need to update some existing matches, this is a great tool for that. Finally, we have the option to not add a new action when there's an existing match found. So the difference there is that means it will ignore anything in this file and it will leave Razor's Edge as is. So new actions that don't match anything in this file, added as new actions. Existing actions in the Razor's Edge will stay the same. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Another piece that's similar to that is working with these attributes. So you can absolutely add action attributes when you're importing in the Razor's Edge, but what you can't do is things that we have available here, again, in those area settings. So we have the option to decide if the action attribute matches an action attribute that's already in Razor's Edge. If it matches, again, we've got those same three options. Add it anyway. Update the existing, add new, or don't change Razor's Edge when it matches. And finally, we have the option to even get a little bit more detailed and say, only add or update the attribute if the action is new or if the action is existing. So a lot more functionality there to just determine who gets this attribute and what we want to change if there is already a similar attribute in the Razor's Edge. We do have similar things as well for action notes. Again, matching on what counts on whether or not this note is already in Razor's Edge, and what do we do if it is. So all of those are really great as far as making sure we are updating and adding data as we need to. Another thing that we can do here that you cannot do in a Razor's Edge import is we can actually add a solicitor to the action while we are importing the action or updating the action. So you do need to have the solicitor canvasser data destination in order to do that. But if you have that available to you, you can map a solicitor on your solicitor tab and come to your action tab, and you can create that link, putting that solicitor and assigning that solicitor to that action. Similarly, if you have the prospect proposal tab, if you've activated that data destination, once you have created a proposal, you can also link that action to a proposal. So if you have the solicitor and the proposal destinations, you have a little bit more functionality that you can use with those actions that you can't do in a Razor's Edge import. So I hope that this has been helpful for you in getting an idea of things that you can do with an action import in Importacular that you can't do in a Razor's Edge import. Thanks so much for joining me, and as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We're happy to help. Have a great day.